Okay, I guess we can begin. I well, welcome everyone. I'm Dale Dougherty with Make Magazine and Maker Fair, and we also do books, particularly a lot of project-oriented books and books in education. And we're here to really celebrate the second edition of Paper Inventions by Kathy Ceceri. We have Kathy here to talk about her book, some of the projects in it, and she's coming to us from upstate New York. We're also joined by Angie De La Cruz, who is also from the area and works in a maker space there, and I'll let her give us the full details. And finally, Ji Ki of Chibitronics. I'm really excited to have Ji. I hope a lot of the makers know the Chibitronics work. And well, let me just ask for quick introductions. Let's start with Kathy. And hi, how are you? And welcome.
I'm great. Thank you so much for letting me talk
Yeah.
about my new book that I worked very hard on. And this is what my fifth book maybe for Make, I think.
Uh,
And it's always been great to be able to share those kind of projects with the Make family.
It's great. All right. Well, we'll come back to you and let you present more from your book. But Angie, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and where you are?
Hi everyone, my name is Angie. I am currently living in Troy, New York, and I work at a makerspace called Tech Valley Center of Gravity. There, I teach all of the children different projects. We try to make it accessible to all children in the area by keeping it free twice a month, and it's been fun.
That's great. And G of Chibitronics, tell us what you're up to.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you so much for having me here, and congrats, big congrats to Kathy on your amazing new edition of your book. I'm excited to be here. So I guess I'm a big paper nerd, and so that somehow turned into my company Chibitronics, where we make toolkits for blending paper crafts with circuits and programming. And so, I just like to make things myself, but with friendly materials, paper. I'm like obsessive about paper. I was saying in an earlier conversation, like I even like the sound of paper folding. This was before all the ASMR videos on YouTube. Like I just like
Mhm.
that sound. So that's kind of like the core of me. And of course, I'm so excited for a whole book on paper inventions. So yeah.
I have to say, G, some of your early like notebooks with things in there were just some it really blending electronics and books or paper together was really kind of so fresh and new. Well, again, I want to welcome everybody here who's joining us. And, there's a chat window if you want to ask questions. But I'd love you just initially to tell us where you are, who you are, where you're coming from. It's interesting to hear from everyone in the audience. So use the chat if you can. And then we will definitely allow time. There's a Q&A section. You can ask specific questions in there. And we'll also look for questions in the chat. But let's go to Kathy. And Kathy, when did you first publish Paper Inventions?
I think it was 10 years ago. I think it was
Wow.
2016.
Yeah.
And
And,
yeah.
yeah. And what is really different now?
So one thing that's really different is I know a lot more about paper circuits than I did 10 years ago. And I feel like I do them much better. And a lot of what I was doing at the beginning was copying things that I saw Chibitronics doing. Because that's how, I don't have a tech background. I'm self-taught. And so you start off looking at what experts are doing and seeing if you can do that too. And then, over the years, getting to where I felt comfortable trying something new with materials and something new with design, and maybe, you know, understanding a little bit more about how electricity works, that I could do this or I could do that, or, you know, or see what happens when I try to do A, B, and C. So I guess I'm more confident now in
Yeah.
that aspect of it. And the other thing that's different is especially during COVID, when I was teaching kids at home a lot, and especially right at the beginning when you couldn't get supplies, I was coming up with the same kind of maker projects, robotics, and things like that that I had taught in person, but assuming that people didn't have access to supplies. And so I'm like, you know, people probably have index cards, they probably have scrap paper. And so a lot of the projects that I was maybe um, requiring, you know, multiple different types of materials, and you know, you had to have a particular kind of box, and you had to have, you know, 6 other things. I was just seeing how much could I make just out of paper that would be that same project. And so I took a lot of the projects that were a little more difficult and required more different kinds of materials in the first edition, and just simplify them so that they're really kid friendly, and then reduced as much as possible the materials to paper and scotch tape, and then, you know, whatever little electronics we add to that.
Great. Do you want to tell us about some of the projects in the book?
Yeah. So I've got a bunch of them here. This is the automaton from the new edition.
Mhm.
From the first edition, it was made out of paper, but it had, you know, 4 million different little pieces that you had to cut out and tape together, and tab A and tab B and all that. And what I did with this version to make it more kid friendly was I, you know, made it so it all fits on one page, one page template. And because I try to make things that are not so exacting, because I want kids to be able to get it to work somewhat, even if it's not working perfectly, without obsessing about doing everything perfectly. Um, I So an automaton is a machine that basically goes up and down, and it's usually got different shaped cams in it that are pushing the rod up and down that your character, whatever, is connected to. And what I did was I just made a soft loop of paper here for the cam, so that you could squish it and squeeze it into any shape, and you could play around and see if it's pointy, what is it doing, and if it's flat and rounded, what is it doing. And you know, I've got the little window inside so you can see what's going on there. And um,
Yeah, you know, it's automata are a really good example of something where you're explaining a mechanism in a sense and how it works, but you can make it do anything creative on top, right? The
right. Well,
it
that's
doesn't,
it. Yeah. The other thing is trying to leave a space for the child or the person who's doing it to add their own um,
Mhm.
design to it and their own flavor to it. So you've got the mechanism that goes up and down. You could put anything up here. And I, you know, had seen something about making a bird's wings flap by holding them down and the bird's going up and down. So the wings look like they're flapping.
Oh,
But
we see it more clearly when you face it that way. That way, yeah,
yeah.
you can see the wings. Yeah,
So you know, but kids could put anything on here.
right.
So they're building this part from the template, and then this part is whatever they want to do with it. And
Right.
you know, and the only extra thing is like paper straws. It's just that one sheet of paper and tape.
Mhm.
So that I don't know. I just
How long does that take, do you think?
I've done it in a class with fifth graders, sixth graders, middle schoolers in under an hour. So, you know, giving them more time gives them more opportunity to think about what they want to add to it, but they could have it built and completed and take it home in an
Yeah.
hour. So it's
Okay.
definitely something that works good in a class.
Okay. All right. Um, yeah. Well, do you have more?
I'm going to switch to my downward facing camera if I can
Yeah.
see if I can do that again.
Well, let me ask Angie. Is that a project, automata, that you've done something similar with
So
kids?
we haven't done that in particular, but my child, when Kathy came to visit, I'm a mom and she's 4, and she was able to interact with a bunch of Kathy's projects. And she
Okay.
loved every single one. And that was one of the ones that Kathy had over there.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's go back to Kathy. What do you
So
got here?
you're seeing my document camera here now?
Yes, yes, we
Okay.
are.
So this is, I believe, what I did at the Makerspace, right, Angie?
Yes.
So this started out with the idea that it was a jack-in-the-box. And one of the things I talk about in the book is because I tried to hit, you know, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So part of the science is, you know, what different things can paper do and why, you know, how does the way the paper is made affect its ability to do things like spring, open, you know. So using cardstock, which is mainly what I use in these projects, and it ended up the easiest kind of box to make was like a clamshell, like, you know, takeout food sometimes comes in, and then it has a little tab here that's kind of the lock. And well, I'll show you how it works, but one of the things, again, I do to encourage kids to bring their own ideas to it is say, give it a theme. So it's going to spring open. You're going to have something pop out of it, and maybe make a decoration on the outside that kind of hints at what is going to come inside, you know, what they're going to see inside. So I did, supposed to be a space theme there, and then you hit it and a little alien pops out.
Nice.
And
This
that
is
is
what
on
the project that we showed the kiddos at the incubator, which is what we call the section for their kids at the Makerspace, Tech Valley Center of Gravity. And they loved this, and they were super creative with it, where each child did something different. And I think each child thought of different ways to make it innovative. So it was really fun.
Right. Oh, that's great. Yeah, someone said it is a jack in the box project in a way, right?
Yeah, yeah. So except I've been calling it Jack in the Clamshell. Didn't come up with a catchy name, but that's kind of what that ended up being. And I just love the fact that, you know, it actually works. It really pops up, you know, and it's got kind of an intermediate reward for the kids in that they're just building the outside first. And then I'm like, okay, try it out, you know, so that's part's working. And then you've got a whole second section that you're building the spring, and then you're coming up with what's going to come out of it. One of the most clever ones I saw, I did this at Maker Faire Rochester last year. And one kid made a snake popping out, and the snake was folded in half, so its mouth popped open as well. So there was like a double pop-up action, which I thought was really clever.
Right, right. That's great.
So,
I just want to kind of show here is the Jack in the Box clamshell card from the book, and I just want to credit our designer Julianne Brown. You know, who worked, did a
you did
great
a
job, and
lovely job.
you know, this is really a case where it's harder to see in video than it is in the book. You know, it's really clear, the step by step how to do things. So it's really nice to see that. And yeah, so again, that's, you know, that's a good kid project. Young kids, you don't need any electronics, any materials other than scissors and a sheet of paper and some pens. So okay, what do you got next?
Okay, let me switch again. It's a little
That camera is working well. That looks really good.
good. sorry. It's like 3 things to click to switch, but.
I know. That's kind of
All right,
cumbersome.
here we are. All right, so to get into the light up electrical projects, so I went back to Maker Faire Rochester this past November, and I wanted to offer the families that come by and visit the opportunity to do something that was not plugged, unplugged, and then something that was light up, and then they could do either one. So what I ended up doing was there's a project that teaches you how to do quilling, which is taking paper strips, curling them up into different shapes, and then kind of making a mosaic out of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's Makey. And yes, and it's on the cover of the book. And so you could just do that, or you could do the light up base and just put a picture over it to diffuse it, or you could combine them like I did with this. I'm going to turn off the light, so hopefully you will see a little bit better. That
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. You can see that.
And so this is the base underneath it, which uses the Chibitronics circuit sticker there, and their fabric conductive tape. And I just made it the simplest circuit I could. There's concerns now about these little CR was it 2032 batteries? People can use them forever,
yeah.
but they are swallowing hazard. So I designed this project now so that it gets sealed up. So it gets taped up here. So when the kids are taking it home, it's not hanging loose anymore, but just to show you what it looks like. And then this is the switch. And this piece of conductive tape is going to connect these 2 pieces here. Is that coming out backwards, reverse for you? No,
it's fine.
Okay. Fine. Anyway, mentioning that there's a gap here, but the rest of the circuit you want to have continued, and then you're going to close a switch, and then that's going to light up there. So, and you can take, here's some of the other kind of quilling ideas that I put out to show people. You can make them, flat, like I said, and use it like a mosaic, but you could also go 3D with it. And another one, and then you could, tape it down over the light. And this project, so, this is basically a combination of different light up projects that I have in the book. This is one of them. With the quilling, but this particular project is also going to be in, I believe, the next issue of Make magazine. So people will have instructions for putting these 2 particular things together. But this is another G-inspired project. Although I'm using regular through-hole LEDs here, the gumdrop shaped ones. But the idea is that you can kind of do special effects by having multiple circuits that then get closed as you run your fingers over it. So it's a flash UFO there.
Yeah. That's fun.
And I don't know if, G, maybe you want to talk about some of the safe launchpad batteries that you are now offering with Chibitronics, which is going to be really good for parents and teachers as well.
Yeah, thanks for that pointer. So to Kathy's point, the traditional coin batteries that they're so handy, as you can see in Kathy's example circuits, they're fine if you just use them outside, as you do with batteries. But if you do end up swallowing them, they are quite dangerous. And so in the efforts to make paper circuits safer and easier, we made these new batteries, which we're calling them launchpad batteries because they have these giant pads on them, the positive and the negative. And the body of the battery is completely wrapped so that the danger that comes from swallowing a coin battery is much reduced. And also there's giant pads so that it's easy to tape to them when you're building paper circuits. Also, I think just having these metal wings just is less comfortable to put in your mouth. So I think from that perspective, hopefully there's like a safety component as well. But
They don't look as much like a lozenge.
exactly, this is not really friendly to swallow with these metal ears coming out. But yeah, and then we put like a giant positive and negative so that it's easier for a learner to just know, one, there is positive and negative, and you just use the symbols on the pads to tell which one, because it can also be confusing, the top and the bottom of a battery. So these are our like paper circuit friendly batteries that we just created. Yeah, like Kathy, this many years later, I also know paper circuits better, so I can make the tools work better
Hey,
for them.
tell us a little bit the origin story of
Origin
Chibitronics.
story?
Meaning like how you got started doing this, and
Oh man. I mean, I can go way back. I guess like the first thing is you had mentioned I was actually in college and I did a summer research internship at MIT, which was like my dream come true. And my advisor, well, at the time she was like, yeah, Professor Leah Beakley. She knew that I was a paper nerd, and her new research group had just started that summer, was around blending traditional craft materials with high tech. It was called high-low tech. And she just told me, like, I know you love paper. I had a mechanical engineering. That's what I was studying. She's like, but you're also an engineer. So put them together and show me what you got. And so I started making switches, just like simple circuit switches, kind of like what Kathy just showed you. And because I was like, okay, switches and buttons look like squares and circles, I made them squares and circles. But then very quickly I realized, like, this is the same paper that I use to like make origami and everything else. And so I started making switches and sensors actually that looked like crafted, like, bumblebees and flowers and stuff, and basically fell in love with it. I ended up making this pop-up book that has like each page is a different scene with different kinds of sensors and switches. I can find the link for you guys later. There's a YouTube video of it. And that, like, I was just making it for fun. I was like between junior and senior year, just making stuff for fun, but it like went viral. And then I like applied to go to grad school, and I think that was like my ticket into grad school. So then I came back, and I continued making and experimenting with all these different materials. It was like so fun. And then it became more fun when I started sharing with other people. And that's when, at the time, there was no Chibitronics. There was not even really paper circuits. There was just, you ordered LEDs and batteries off the internet. And that's what I did. And through the course of doing all these workshops, I realized, like, oh, if I wanted to do paper circuits, I can make tools that are built for people and not like machines, which is the components that I was using, the standard components. And that's how started looking at custom
Right.
stuff. And
Right. But the circuit sticker is really a great
oh
innovation,
yeah,
like, like kids know stickers, right?
that's true. Yeah,
Right. And they,
yeah.
and to some degree, one of the challenges was with just having all these things is how do you attach it to something, right? How do you work with paper to put the conductive tape down or things like that?
Yeah. Stickers are, I mean, they're friendly, right? Even now, like vinyl stickers are like totally, they're friendly, and that's with everything, using a friendly material like paper or stickers to introduce something that might be a little bit more intimidating, like electronics or even coding later on. But I think, to what Kathy was saying earlier, giving room for the creator to, or the kid to put their interests into it is kind of seems to be what's worked really well. And so, that's kind of the goal all along. It allowed me to express myself in new ways, and I'm excited to see it allow other folks do that too over the years. It's a much longer story, but that's
Yeah, no, that's great. But you've been at it a while, and it really is just wonderful. Paper circuits have, yeah, they were I don't know if you kind of think of it as the raw materials that you mentioned earlier. They were a little bit difficult to get right, and you've kind of made it into a product that is much easier to use. So thank you for what you do. Kathy, let's go back to you and see if you have another project to show us. I
Yes,
don't
I
know
do.
how many you have actually, so you got to lead me on.
I've got a bunch. Yeah. So as I'm finding the right camera again, I have a whole chapter of programmable projects in this book, which I did not have in the other book, and just to show you that you can use motors. I took a project that I had done with cardboard previously and turned it into all paper. And I did this with some fifth graders in an enrichment class I was teaching last year. And we're using a microbit, which is a very inexpensive little microcontroller, little mini computer. And you can program it with a free online software language called MakeCode from Microsoft. You use it right in your browser, so you don't have to download it. It's even schools that apparently block Scratch, which is like a horrible thing to think about, that there's schools that don't let kids use Scratch. They have not found MakeCode, which is pretty much just Scratch for
Yeah, block programming. Yeah,
well, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. So my students were able to use the MakeCode to make these different projects. This one is just using the random command that you get in the math section of MakeCode to make a fortune teller. And I'm not sure what you'll be able to see here, but I'll just turn it on.
Maybe try centering it a little bit more in the camera. We see only the other direction. Pull it towards your hand. Yeah.
Oh, this way?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's got this little screen you can do little animations on. So the arrow is pointing, telling you to push button A, and then you would ask the question, are we going to get more snow tomorrow? And then it will give you an answer. Maybe.
Okay.
So this is, just a fun program to make and a very simple build. And, I fulfilled my challenge of just making it all in paper. I've got another one.
Can I ask you one question on that? What's the connection between the microbit and the arrow? What's moving the arrow?
Oh, sure. Let me bring that back. Sorry. Yeah, so this is a servo motor.
Okay, so
and it's just taped onto the paper with some double sticker tape there.
Okay.
And a servo motor can be programmed to stop at any spot. It can move 180 degrees. So you're giving it a choice of 4 random answers, and then you have to figure out on your particular game board that you've created where is maybe going to be, and how many degrees does the servo horn have to turn to point in that direction. So there's a lot of troubleshooting, which is something I always try to teach kids. And maybe Angie could talk a little bit about this. I'm finding that kids are less and less willing to take a risk and do something, try something they haven't done before. And it's getting frustrating trying to figure out ways to make them feel comfortable enough to do some of these things. I don't know, Angie, what have you been finding with your students?
Yeah, so the thing about, the incubator that I love is that it's accessible to children of all walks of life. And a lot of the time, it's the first time that the students are being introduced to STEM or STEAM. where they otherwise wouldn't be able to because of the economic status. And I think that's where the frustration or the, you know, pause comes from. They're not really exposed to STEM, and so they feel like they can't do it. And if you feel like that before you start a project, the chances of you being able to complete the project are, lessened. And so I think that depending on, the child and the project themselves, the motivation of you being there to sort of help them through it and not do it for them but hold their hand a little bit helps a lot. And I think the projects in particular that Kathy has are really great because they're pretty affordable. They can be done on any level. Again, my 4-year-old was pretty engaged with these projects, and they show really something that can be done on a lower level and something that can be done on a higher level. For example, like creating something innovative in the world. So,
Yeah, that's great. Kathy, did you the next one queued up there?
I do. Whoops. Yep, there we are. Okay. So this is a project also uses the Chibitronics LED, which if I peel this off, you can kind of see back there. This is a birthday card, and it's got also the microbit on it. Instead of using a motor, it's going to light up an external LED. So I've got that Chibitronics conductive tape there, and going through the pop-up part of this, it kind of makes an opening where the tape can go in, and then to the backing where I have that LED stuck on there, that LED sticker. And it makes use of the sensors that are built into the microbit. And this is another trick I got from G. One of her projects during MIT, I guess, was a painting of dandelions, and you would blow on the painting and the little seeds would start to move. And so what I'm doing here is you are blowing on the microbit, and it turns off the light as if you've blown out the candle, and then it starts, because it has a speaker in it, it starts to play Happy Birthday. So I'll see if I can get that to work live on video. The battery pack is in the back here. I add, just for anybody that's using microbits or interested in using them, they come with a battery pack that holds 2 AAA batteries. I switch that out for a battery pack that has an on-off switch. That way you don't have to unplug it all the time or pull the batteries out to turn it off. All right, I'm going to be quiet so I don't trigger it until I'm ready to blow out the candle. Were you able to hear that?
No.
Yeah.
No.
All right.
your
Well,
microphone is too good.
Yeah.
played Happy Birthdays, but
Yeah. Okay.
I wasn't sure
So
which microphone was going to pick that up.
how do you turn on the light? Is that just pressure on the top?
There is a sound sensor on the microbit.
Okay.
And when you blow, the sound of your breath going over it is enough sound to trigger it. And then I've got the program written that when it hears, a certain level of sound, it will go on to the next part of the program, which is turning off the light and playing the Happy Birthday song.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question that is in the chat. Michael asked, would it be possible to give some examples that involve math? Or did you already give an example that involves some math?
I didn't bring any of those projects. I mean, if you're doing the programming, like I said, the randomizing that is involving math. The projects that I have in the book, let me see, what did I put in the math section? So it's a lot of making strange shapes. This is engineering, so math is going to be where? But it's here we go. It's a hexaflexagon. Oh, you can't see this because I'm on the wrong camera. Hold on. Sorry. Video. There we go. So hexaflexagon is a shape that it's almost like a fidget toy. You kind of flip it around and it shows 3 different sides. So here's one hexaflexagon and the 3 different sides that it will reveal as you flip it around. And things like making a fractal dragon curve by folding paper, and how many times can you fold paper, and Mobius strips and things like that. I'm going backwards here. What else have we got? And just origami is, demonstrates all kinds of geometric concepts as you are playing around with that. Oh, I also have nets. I forgot that. So I know Joan Horvath and her co-author have some nice geometry books where they're 3D printing geometric solids. So I'm showing you how to make them out of paper and then giving you the templates to have kids cut out and fold up. And just to mention, all the templates that are in the book, they are in the back, but also if you go to my website, and Jamie can put that link up there, there's a page that has all the templates as PDFs that you can print out. So you can get them, and all the templates that I created fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, or multiple, but that's the size they are. So you can just size it up to fit on that paper.
Okay, that's great. Rose, excuse me, Angie, could you talk a little bit about how you did this with a group of kids?
Mm-hmm.
Do some of these
So,
projects? Because I think this
well,
is one thing that's different. As a parent, you're working often just with 1 or 2 kids, but as a teacher or in a school setting, you got to do this with a bunch.
So someone mentioned in the chat that children do not enjoy troubleshooting these days, and I agree. I often have to explain before we do a project the engineering process and how we have to test and then fix and then test again. And this warning has been introduced, after having a bunch of students in during a field trip, because we also do those, and realizing that if they don't get that warning, they don't know what to expect, and the frustration level is a lot higher. Whereas if I give that warning, they're like, okay, this might happen. I understand. And I can get them engaged a little bit longer before I lose them completely with the frustration. So I think, again, it comes to, the introduction and letting them practice troubleshooting with little things before having to do it with big things. And so something like this, a lot of the kids with the Jack in the Box project, a lot of the kiddos couldn't get the paper sometimes to jump up. And that was a little bit of a frustrating thing. Some of the kids couldn't get their tab correctly. So it just depends on the project, and being kind of there to encourage them a little bit, to get them to finish the project, and then they have that gratification. It's not instant like everything else, but it's there at the end of the project.
Okay.
When I'm teaching these projects, I have started introducing them by saying, we're working with paper. It's not like Legos. It's not going to be standardized, and it's not going to snap together 100%. It's going to be a little floppy. It's going to need some finagling. So that is to be expected. I on the back of my Making Simple Robots book, where there is also a lot of paper and cardboard projects, I gave a list of my rules of robot making, and the first one was you can never use too much tape. And I would tell students that because when they're cutting things out of paper, they don't have the skills that fifth graders had in the past with scissors and folding. You know, the things not popping up is probably because they weren't making a nice sharp crease because they haven't done a lot of folding. So because they were having trouble with the scissors and maybe they were cutting something off that they didn't mean to cut off, it was supposed to be connected. I, was telling the thing about tape so that they would understand that, and I would say, so what will we do if you make a mistake? We'll tape it back together, tape the whole thing back together and just recut it, and that is the nice thing about paper. The first thing they want to do is just start over again. And, it is nice that paper is cheap and plentiful, but I try to get them to at least give it a try to fix it before they just throw that one out and go to the next one. But I will say that this year, I did find the students that were able to use too much tape. So I'm trying to reword that a little bit.
Appropriate.
Yeah. You're free to use as much tape as is needed to fix the project or put some constraints on that.
Yeah. Okay, great. And I wanted to let our everybody who's here that we're going to do a drawing for a free copy of Paper Inventions and to someone in the audience here. So Jamie is going to close her eyes and pick someone out of the attendee list, and I'll give you the name in a few minutes here. So that's for we'll send you a physical copy of this book. Gee, I just want to invite you back in to talk a little bit more about maybe that you're a paper nerd and mechanical engineer, and I think that kind of thing is, I mean, we do tend to think of paper as paper craft, and we talk about those things. And I think craft is valuable. We all learn to do different things. But how can we kind of, I guess, what's that bridge to engineering that you see here? What kind of either skills or things do you think we're exploring when we're doing the kind of paper inventions that Kathy's talking about?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. I think, honestly, it's already been brought up, right? The idea of being patient when you make mistakes, when you iterate to learn something new or make it better, like that's what engineering is, right? You make something, you see how it works, you improve it by using the knowledge that you learned from the previous one, or it fails and you learn the patience to keep going and build on the whatever you have so far. So like that process is very much to me the like meta engineering. That said, what's like, again, I'm a big paper like, I don't know, I'll just push it. What's nice is that even though you might eventually become an architect, or maybe you're going to design a rocket or whatever, oftentimes people still prototype with paper because, like everybody has said, it's cheap, it's easy to work with, it's soft enough that you can do it with your hands, but you can make a precise cut. You can do detailed work, you can build big things with cardboard. It's just a material that's like, it's like a good stand-in for a bunch of other materials. Once you've done your cardboard prototype, maybe then you can move on to wood or something. So it's just a nice beginning point. So a lot of the physics that applies to like paper, it applies to other stuff. It's just, it's just paper is just easier to work with by hand, or with simpler and perhaps safer tools, let's say, because it's softer.
That's great.
But the physics is all the same.
Yeah, but I think you get to something that's kind of important here is that we've been talking about, but the process, is, that you don't just you make something, you explore, you try something, you see what happens when, and that as someone in I think Rosa said, talk about attention spans. She said our students tend to dread troubleshooting and productive frustration because it requires persevering and often more time than what they're used to giving a task. Well, that's exactly what you're kind of quote teaching, right? Is to try again, and this applies to art as well as engineering. I would say is that having many ideas instead of one idea, exploring those ideas and looking at different outcomes is all part of that process that I found kind of interesting. Angie, do you have anything to add on that?
I think it's well, to your point about art, I think that's why the A was added to STEM too, because
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of factors of the projects that are related to art in general. And you can see that tie-in when you are trying to work on a project and something's just not going the way that you want it to, even though it's the part that you think is easy, where people often think the art part is easy, but some kiddos will have trouble with that part too. So
Yeah.
it's all together. And I think that when people see that it's related or can be related, they can appreciate all of it more.
There's in the chat, Soy Powell mentioned NASA working on origami solar sails for traveling in deep space, and says there are a lot of tie-ins. And Nathan responded and said, when he saw the unfolding solar panels, he thought of papercraft. And I think this is what's cool about books like Kathy's is there's a lot of technique to doing certain things, and you get good at learning a technique, applying a technique, and I think the creative part often comes when you take a technique used in one area and apply it in something completely new. um, and Kathy, it sounds like whether it's from G or other people, you've been kind of learning and teaching these techniques over the years.
Yeah, my background, if I have any training, is in art. So there was a point where I homeschooled my kids, and I have a big cabinet with all these supplies, or when they were little. Now it's all over the house, but at this time I was able to keep it in one cabinet. But I noticed that I was using the same supplies more or less for our art projects and for our science projects. A lot of times you're using the rulers and you're using the same kind of stuff. So it very much, brought that overlap that you can go back and forth between doing something as a purely artistic endeavor, and then, what are you going to learn from it in a scientific sense or engineering applications and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, I just want to remind everyone, in the time we have remaining, we'd love to have your questions. If you have questions for Kathy, G, or Angie. And let me tell you who won a free book, and that's Douglas Kimber. Congratulations, Douglas. We'll reach out to you. I think Janie will get your address, and really glad to send you a copy of Fiber Inventions. We hope you'll read it, use it, play with it, and tell other people about the book. So congratulations. But please, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. And I thought, G, do you have any questions for Kathy or I know Angie must, because you guys live in the same area, you've already spent some time looking and talking to each other. But any questions for Kathy?
I think I have a question.
Okay,
And
good.
I didn't get to ask you when you were at the TV cog. How long did it take for you to work on this book and actually release it?
It took me over a year, which is much longer than I had expected because I was working from a previous book and I did reuse some of the projects. The quilling was from the first book, and all the maths pretty much, all the origami and the actually no, I take that back, but the topology projects were all from the first book. So I thought, oh, I've got a third of it written at least, but it ended up, I kept finding new things to do and new ways to do it. And it just, I kind of went in depth a little bit more than maybe I thought I would, but I was really happy with all the projects that ended up in the book and probably could have kept going if I did feel like I needed to stop and actually get the book in people's hands. But yeah, it's always a process, and just how much I learned in the time between the first edition, the second edition, and everything I learned just in working on the book. And during that time I was teaching some enrichment classes, so I got to test each project, which I don't always have that opportunity. My kids are beyond the age of being my guinea pigs, so it was nice to have some fresh victims and get their feedback. What did they like? What was difficult? What, see what maybe I could do to make things a little bit easier.
Yeah, a lot of it is I'm interested in how to, like a teacher or in a group, how do you set this up effectively? What explaining it to the kids, or often um, um, want to just give them a set of instructions. You really want to inspire them to think creatively about, like the Jack in the Box. If you see a mechanism like that, and often that can inspire them, but you don't want them to repeat the exact thing. And you want them to think about other things that might jump up and pop up and do that kind of thing. So it's kind of an interesting challenge. To not be too literal or directive, and give them a space to play.
It's actually really interesting. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go
I
on,
was going to
Angie.
say, I taught a class this week where we were going to do some origami, and I was afraid that the kids were not going to find it, exciting enough because it's just sitting and folding paper. So I lied and I told them that I had not brought the paper cups that I normally bring to distribute pretzels to everybody, and that they were going to have to make them. And I had them take a piece of paper and show them how to fold an origami cup out of the paper. And that was good for 30 minutes, 45 minutes of the class, just having them make cups. They had to test to see if it held water. They had to make a whole bunch so that they could share them. So making it something they could use actually seemed to really, bring these kids to life.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Angie, you were going to say something.
Oh, yes. I was going to say that when I have steam powered Saturdays, that's what we call it. The kiddos do come in and they come in with their parents. And that can be a good thing, but that can also be a bad thing because parents tend to want to have the literal directions. And some of the things that I try and teach are more open ended. So there will be some direction, but there needs to be a little bit of innovation to that the kids would do on their own. But some parents will try and get them to do exactly what they see on the paper. And so I have to remind them they can do whatever they want, let them think about it, let them do projects. And so it's funny how sometimes parents can hold their children back from that aspect of it, almost like they don't want them to fail, where failing is part of the process for us.
That's going to go to this last question we have here, but Michael Barney asked a question about how do you choose the microprocessor type and programming language, and I think the simple answer is microbit is inexpensive, it's widely available, it's well supported, in terms of plugging it into a computer, getting it up and running, good documentation. And so it's really a block programming language as opposed to typing in, a lot of text. And it's a good starting place for kids to, like it has that little display you were showing. They can put their initial on it, or they can do something creative. And it has simple sensors, so they can begin to kind of explore different patterns of physical computing. Something like Arduino and other things have, just a bit more learning curve. So would you agree with that, Kathy?
And that little LED screen also lets you take readings directly from the sensors.
Yeah, right.
So I have done some science projects with that, where we're reading how much electricity are you generating from a windmill made out of paper cups, by
Yeah.
hooking it up to the microbit, and then you can read the numbers, scrolling across that little screen.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's really, really nice. And it's available all over the world. The BBC, when they developed it, I think gave it to every child in the equivalent of fourth grade in the UK, and then it's spread all over the world from there. So there's so many resources that users have created, as well as the
Right.
people that maintain it.
Yeah. Maybe it's our closing question. Michael Silbert asked, he spent 30 years in K-13 mathematics education, and he retired with only one regret. I was never able to come up with a way of rewarding students for making mistakes. I think that's a great idea. So what you are offering is a safe environment in which to provide experiences in which making mistakes is a natural and essential part of the value in achieving the goal. And I think that's just well said. That's very, very interesting. And how you respond to mistakes is kind of the key part of that. It's not the end. And but I'll let Kathy, our star here, talk about. Yeah, you might have a few mistakes in writing a book, right?
Oh yeah, no, I probably had a couple.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say is that every now and then in these programs, you'll get some kid that is a budding engineer, and they will look at what you are presenting as, here's the materials and here's what we're going to do with it today, and they say, can I do such and such? Can I make it this way, or can I make something totally different out of it? Sometimes they say, can I have another motor so I can do something else? And I'm not always able to do that, but within my ability, I will always say, yes, you are free to do what you want and try this new idea you have, but you have to go into it with the understanding that if you do it the way I'm showing you, you have a very high probability that it's going to work. And if you try your idea, I can't guarantee that it will work. And if you're okay with that, go ahead. I just want you to know going into it that what you're trying might not work in the time that we have to work on it, but you can take it home and keep working on it. And, that's always the greatest thing, is when you hear that they took it home and did something else and, brought it back the next week. That's the one thing that always warms my heart.
Well, good. Well, I think his idea too of, just rewarding students for making mistakes. And I think it's, if you're a parent, a teacher, it's how do you react to mistakes? A student making that, it is not necessarily a sign of failure. It's a sign of trying, a sign of exploring, and so I think that has a lot to do with that. Well, we've come to the hour here, and I want to thank my guests, Angie De La Cruz from the Thinkubator in Troy, New York, Jiki from in St. Petersburg, Florida, I understand, with Chibitronics, and it's just great to have you join us, and of course, author Kathy Ceceri, also from upstate New York, and her new book, Paper Inventions. And please, this is one of those books that you want to hold, you want to show people, you want to look at it with other people. It's yeah, we sell a PDF of it, but it's a fun book to hold in your hands and actually work from. So paper, paper, paper. Remember, even in the digital age, right?
Absolutely. We
Yeah.
can't lose, there's so many senses in our fingertips. We can't just be feeling
Exactly.
glass all the time.
Right. And I think that's not something we touch on enough, but just tactile. I think kids are really desperate to have tactile interactions today, that instead of screen-based interactions. So please don't let other people know, friends, family, teachers, after school programs. They could build a whole after school program out of this single book. So thank you all for joining us. Again, I'm Dale Dougherty from Make. And thanks to Angie, Kathy, and G for joining us today. And have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Dale.